CJAD presents Exchange with Neil McKenty. Call 790-0991. That's 790-0991.
Good Wednesday morning from Neil McKenty on this first hour of Exchange. We're asking, this first hour only, are you concerned about your health and physical fitness? And we welcome our guest for this first hour of Exchange only, Dr. Art Mollen, an osteopath and fitness expert who developed the Mollen method of preventive medicine. Dr. Mollen practices at the Southwest Health Institute of Arizona, and we invite our listeners to call 790-0991 and speak directly to Dr. Mollen in Phoenix, Arizona. First, Dr. Mollen, would you describe briefly for us the Mollen method of preventative medicine?
What we're using with that is we're using exercise and diet, and we prescribe a specific exercise program for people who come in with various diseases, whether that's heart disease or hypertension or high cholesterol levels, and we've prescribed this exercise program for them for a 90-day period, and usually they see significant results. We also put them on a diet with that, and the diet is mostly high in carbohydrates and extremely low in fats. And we have found through our research, as well as the research studies which have been done around the country, that when people are put on low-fat diets, that will lower the incidence of various diseases such as heart disease and cancer.
Now, we've heard diets, Dr. Mollen, till they're coming out our ears.
Right.
And food fads, you pick up the paper every day, and a Canadian doctor says you mustn't eat this, an American doctor says you must eat this. Give us your assessment of food fads and diets and how important they are and how much attention we should pay to them.
Right. As you know, Neil, I'm a syndicated columnist, so I get tons of information that go across my desk in terms of trying to decipher exactly what is correct in terms of diet and what really will work. The fad diets, the gimmicks, and everything else, I think people will become somewhat skeptical when they hear it's like a new diet has come out. So I think what we have to do is be realistic about it. Do exactly what you can in terms of your diet that's going to fit into your lifestyle. If the diet is too unrealistic, then you're not going to follow it for life. So the Mollen method is basically a diet which is sensible. It's very low in fats, but not too unrealistic, whereas the average American diet is about 40% fat. This is about 20% fat.
Okay. Now, another area before we go to our callers, 790-0991. I invite you to talk to Dr. Mollen in Phoenix, Arizona. He not only writes syndicated columns, he's a talk show host and has a great deal to do with the public in matters of medicine. This whole area, Dr. Mollen, that's becoming more prominent, that our mental attitude can affect our health. What is your view of that, and what evidence is there for it?
Yeah, I think mental attitude is by far one of the most significant factors in terms of your health. There's, no question about it. Mental attitude can, of course, cause depression and anxiety and nervousness, but it manifests itself much greater than that because it can potentially cause even heart disease and heart attacks by being extremely upset or nervous about something.
And, we're hearing stories, Norman Cousins and others who have had pretty serious diseases, and they're claiming that because of mental attitude and optimism and positive thinking, they can overcome or apparently overcome pretty serious organic problems.
I think what you have to do is have a certain faith and belief in yourself, number one, and a certain ability to understand that these diseases can potentially be affected by the emotions and by the anxieties and the tensions. And so if you can go in that direction, understand it, and then apply what will work in terms of the exercise and diet, that will help to relieve a lot of the stress by exercising on a regular basis. So I think, yes, the emotions can potentially turn it around.
Okay, 790-0991. We invite your calls for Dr. Mollen in Phoenix, Arizona. He'll be with us this hour only. What are some of the best methods in your view to stay in good physical shape? Some of the best exercise methods among others?
I think the jogging is a very good exercise in terms of the benefits from it in the shortest period of time. There's a maximum amount of benefits that will be received from it in a minimal amount of time. It may not be the best exercise. There may be other exercises which will also give you similar benefits in terms of weight loss and cardiovascular endurance and things like that. So generally we will suggest either walking, jogging, bicycling, swimming, rope jumping, even mini trampolines as some of the best exercises. But they should be aerobic exercise. I think that's extremely important.
What do you mean by aerobic exercises?
Aerobic exercises are one in which you elevate your pulse rate for a continued period of time, generally 20 to 30 minutes. And when we say elevate your pulse rate, we're talking about elevating it to a level at which you'll receive a beneficial effect on your heart and lungs. So that's above, say, 120 beats per minute. So for the listening audience, if you take the number 220 minus your age, and you times that by 70%, that will give you an exercise pulse. That's a pulse rate at which you can exercise and get that beneficial effect on your heart and lungs.
Let me get that again. 220 minus your age
times 70%.
Times 70% will give you a beneficial exercise heart rate.
Yes.
Now, can you get this by just fast, brisk walking in the city?
For some people, yes. If you were to go out and just take a walk during your lunch hour or something, you absolutely could elevate your pulse rate to get that beneficial effect. But the person who is perhaps a waitress or does a lot of walking at work and says, well, I get enough walking in at work, that's not necessarily true. That's a totally different type of walking, and you may be burning calories by doing that, but you will not elevate your pulse rate again to that 70% level at which you'll receive the beneficial effects on your heart and lungs.
Okay, we're speaking with Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert, founder of the Mollen Method of staying fit. We're speaking to him in Phoenix, Arizona for this hour only. Any of your questions about what we've talked about or other questions about health, physical fitness, how to stay healthy, how to stay physically fit, 7900991, and we'll be right back with Dr. Mollen, your questions in Phoenix, Arizona, right after this short break. Back on Exchange, CJAD, and speaking this morning with our special guest, Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert, founder of the Mollen Method of staying in good physical shape. And we're speaking with Dr. Art Mollen in Phoenix, Arizona. I'd like you to put your comments about health, physical fitness, any allied subject directly to Dr. Mollen. You're on Exchange.
Morning, Dr. Mollen. I'm 50 years old. I weigh 175 pounds, 6 feet tall, flat stomach. I do 4 miles a day of walking. Now, I feel this is adequate for me. I'm comfortable. And I was always under the impression that any exertion on joints, running strenuously, your ankles, your knees, you're putting on excessive wear and tear beyond the normal wear of a person in his lifespan.
Yeah, actually, they've done research studies on men in their 70s, and they have found that they actually, men in their 70s who have run for 30 years or more, and they have found that they have less arthritic changes in their joints, in their hips and low back and knees, than men who had done nothing at all. So that's somewhat of a myth today, and we really don't go along with that theory. In terms of you walking the 4 miles, I see no problem with that program for you, and if that's working adequately for you, then I would stick with that. Although I probably would like to see you monitor your pulse rate and make sure that you are elevating it to at least 70% of what your maximum heart rate would be. And if you are, then that's fine. You'll get that beneficial effect.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling. And 7900991, you're on Exchange.
Hello, Dr. Mollen.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I have a young daughter who's 21 years old, and she's a diabetic.
Okay.
I cannot get her to eat meat or cheeses or things like that, and I'm just very concerned about how she can, have the required protein.
I don't think that if she has the diabetes that the meats and the cheeses are that important for her. There are two types of protein. There's animal protein and there's vegetable protein, and you can get all the essential amino acids from simply eating vegetables, so that you really don't need to eat that protein the meat to get that protein that you may be thinking about, or the cheeses. And the cheeses, of course, are high in fats, and most of the meats, unless it's extremely lean, is reasonably high in fats, and I don't think you really want to put the fats in there. She'll control her diabetes much better, again, if you give her complex carbohydrates, and I've treated many of my patients with diabetes using this diet, and it's been very effective.
What diet? Do you have a book out, Dr. Mollen? I'm sorry I didn't.
My first book is called Run for Your Life.
Huh?
And
in that book, would there be...
I have some diets in there which are very similar, and then in my next book, which will be the Mollen Method, that'll be out within the next year.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you for calling Exchange, and we're inviting your calls, anything to do with health, physical fitness, exercise, 7900991. We have Dr. Art Mollen with us from Phoenix, Arizona for this hour only, just about another 40 minutes. 7900991, welcoming first-time callers. You're on Exchange.
Hi, I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome to Exchange.
Thank you very much. I'm 5'5.5", and I weigh about 128 pounds. Now, I'm not overweight. Well, maybe not really overweight, but I'm out of shape. And I find it very, very difficult to follow an exercise program. I come from a very small town, and I've even given aerobic classes myself. But they never last a long time. And I find that when I come home and I'm taking care of my 5-year-old son and doing the housework, I am just too tired to follow a program by myself or with the television.
What I would suggest for you is probably, under those circumstances, a stationary bicycle. A stationary bicycle, and you could put it in front of the television, and you could have your 5-year-old kind of running around and being crazy and everything else that 5-year-olds have a tendency to do. And just get on that stationary bicycle and ride that for 20 to 30 minutes, and I think that would be an excellent program, and it'd be one that you would stick to.
I also find that after I had my son, my whole body dropped, and even if I did follow an exercise program for a few months, that a few weeks later, if I haven't followed it, everything just goes right back to normal. Is it really possible to lose all that muscle tone in a matter of just a few weeks?
Well, you don't really lose it in a matter of a few weeks. It probably would have occurred maybe over the entire course of the pregnancy, and probably you weren't doing that much just prior to it, and then maybe afterwards you maybe babied yourself a little bit, and you really didn't try to get back into shape right away. So the tone of the muscle, yes, can be lost over a period of 9 to 12 months, but it can be regained so quickly, and within 30 to 60 days, if you got back onto a program, you'd find that you'd regain a lot of your muscle tone and be able to lose the extra pounds. And at 128, I probably would rather see you closer to about 115 pounds at 5'5".
115 pounds.
Yes.
Oh, God, I feel fat now.
Oh, that's okay. Just get out and, start walking or get on that stationary bike.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling Exchange. We're asking this morning for your comments, calls on any aspect of health and physical fitness. Direct your questions directly to Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath, fitness expert, radio television host, syndicated columnist, writer of books, Run for Your Life, and on the Mollen Method of Physical Fitness. We're speaking to him in Phoenix, Arizona, for just about another 35 minutes. 7900991, welcoming first-time callers. You're on Exchange.
Good morning. Could I speak to the doctor, please?
Go ahead.
Good morning, doctor.
How are you?
I would like to know if you believe in medication to lower cholesterol.
No, I haven't used medication to lower cholesterol in 15 years.
And you believe it can be lowered just with the diet and exercise?
Yes, it absolutely can. I've done that in over 10,000 patients in the last 15 years.
And about how long would you say it would take to lower the cholesterol in an average, in a good diet and exercise?
90 days.
90 days.
90 days you can lower it, absolutely.
Thank you very much, doctor.
Welcome.
Very interesting program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Mollen, just before we go to the next caller on 7900991, there seems to be now a bit of a controversy about the effect, one way or another, of salt on the diet.
Right, well, the average American consumes about 10 times as much salt as they need. And so if you figure that you could eliminate all the salt from your table, number one, there's still going to be a significant amount of salt in the foods that you eat, which are perhaps processed, or foods that are, if you eat in a restaurant, that already have a certain amount of salt in there. So salt is a contributing factor to hypertension. Now, people that don't have hypertension may say, well, should I take salt, but why does it matter to me? I don't have high blood pressure. Well, there are a lot of people who have a propensity to develop high blood pressure in the future, and if they're consuming a lot of salt, that can potentially be a problem for them later on.
So if I'm sitting there eating apples, which I love, and sprinkling the apples with salt, I'm doing myself no good.
Well, the apple is okay, so you're doing yourself some good there. An apple is about 100 calories, so that's good, and an apple is very high in roughage, and that's something good that you want to put into your diet. But in terms of the salt, no, I don't think you're being very beneficial to your body with adding additional salt.
Okay. We're asking any of your questions about health, physical fitness, 7900991. For Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert in Phoenix, Arizona. Yes, you're on exchange.
Yes. I wanted to know what your opinion is on the Nautilus form of exercise.
Yeah, I think that Nautilus is excellent. Nautilus is good. Free weights are good. The universal weights are good. But I think before you get into a program, you have to delineate exactly what it is that you want out of the program. If you want to use the Nautilus to develop large muscles or muscle tone, or is it you just want to get into shape, or you want to trim your body out? And I think that's what you have to decide. What is it exactly that
trimming the body? Hello?
Yes?
It's for trimming the body.
Right. If I were to recommend a program which would trim the body down, I'd have to suggest that someone do aerobic-type exercise. Again, the bicycling, the swimming, the walking, the jogging, the mini trampolines, aerobic dance, something, again, which will burn more calories. You will not burn that many calories by lifting weights of any type, whether it's Nautilus or Universal. It's a minimal amount of calories that are burned. However, you will develop an increase in muscle size, although women will develop less increase in muscle size than men because of the lack of testosterone. But you will develop muscle tone, and you will develop muscle strength. But you will not necessarily tone specific or trim specific areas of the body. The only thing that will do that, again, is the aerobic exercise.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for calling Exchange. And we are spending another 35 minutes only with Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert from Phoenix, Arizona. We'll be right back with your questions and comments on health, physical fitness, and any allied subject after this short break. Back on Exchange 1028 CJAD, our special guest, Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert, Phoenix, Arizona. Put your questions and comments directly to Dr. Mollen. You're on Exchange.
Morning, Dr. Mollen.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I'm a 42-year-old male who suffered a heart attack last year in November that was diagnosed to be a result of elevated cholesterol.
Uh-huh.
And my figures at that time were around 450. They've since been reduced to 225, which has been a combination of cholestyramine, medicine, and diet. But I was wondering from you, if I get some information, I've never been given an exact type of diet or type of exercise that would be best to carry out my treatment myself.
Yeah, sure. We've been working with a lot of patients who've had heart attacks. I've had several of my patients who we have taken back to Boston and run the Boston Marathon with, and a few that we've gone to Honolulu and run the Honolulu Marathon, and this was perhaps within 6 months to a year after having had their heart attacks. So we start them on an exercise program. We put them on a high complex carbohydrate diet, but I think that at this point in time, for you, especially at your age, that the potential for you to open up those coronary arteries and prevent any reoccurrence of a heart attack would be very great if you would exercise, and I think you could lower that cholesterol down into the below the 180 mark. 180 is the critical level as far as I'm concerned. I try to get most of my patients down to below the 180 milligram level on cholesterol level. So if yours is still 250, that's good in comparison to the 450, but I think I could probably do that for you without the medications if you were exercising, but you'll need to exercise.
But there's one complication that was thrown in there that they have discovered that this is a hereditary factor.
Uh-huh.
My oldest daughter, who is 16, also has an elevated cholesterol level of around 320.
Right, and again, even though there are hereditary factors, you can change that around, and there's two types of cholesterol which we have discovered now, and there's a good guy cholesterol and a bad guy cholesterol. So perhaps all of that cholesterol is not necessarily that bad for you. The good guy cholesterol is called HDL, which is high-density lipoproteins. And the bad guy is supposedly the LDLs, which is the low-density lipoproteins. But this high-density cholesterol, which is good, can be increased through exercise.
Can be increased, even though it is currently low. I know mine is currently below normal.
Your HDL?
Yes.
Yeah, your HDL can be increased through exercise, and exercise is the only thing which has been proven to affect HDL levels in terms of increasing them. In fact, some of the studies before had suggested that alcohol could increase HDL levels, but now we know that there's a different fraction of HDL that we're talking about. So HDL now is broken up into two parts, one which is increased by alcohol, which is not the good cholesterol, but the good one that we want, which will be affected by exercise, is the one that you want.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling. Yes, you're on Exchange.
Hi, good morning. Dr. Mollen, please.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good indeed. Doctor, I'd like to know what are the best exercise for a hockey player to build stamina. At the moment, I do stationary bike with tensions and light weights and floor exercise. I would like to build more stamina, like breathing and so on. I'm 41 years old.
Yes.
And what would you recommend?
I think that the most important thing for hockey players is the off-ice exercises that they're going to do. I think most hockey players spend most of their time on the ice, whether that's 5 hours a day or 6 hours a day in terms of improving their skills, but very few of them spend that much time off the ice. And I think that's where the current theories on it are starting to show that the more time you spend off the ice, the greater your improvement. So I would suggest the stationary bike is excellent. I'd suggest probably running maybe 3-6 miles a day, depending upon what your level of fitness is right now. And perhaps even if you could get an indoor pool, doing some swimming and some sprint swimming, which would help you in terms of your anaerobic breathing.
Right. So you feel that the exercise I'm doing presently is good for stamina, even if it's even if I'm 41 year old, eh?
Oh, sure, no question about it. That will, again, the age is only a number. I don't use the age as a great criteria in terms of developing a person's fitness level. At 41, you're still, very young, and so I feel that the exercise that you're doing on the bike is very good.
Good. Now, I'd like you to tell me, what are your views on acupunctures?
Yeah, well, we only use acupuncture in very resistant cases of pain that have been chronic for many years. But for a person who had perhaps an athletic injury, and if it were present for a short period of time, meaning 3 months, 6 months, even up to a year, we certainly wouldn't use acupuncture. There are other physical therapy modalities to be used. Acupuncture will help some people, but only in selected cases has it been found to be beneficial as a treatment over the more conventional means such as physical therapies and even some of the anti-inflammatory drugs.
Right. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, sir. Yes, you're on Exchange with Dr. Mullen.
Good morning, Dr. Mullen.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you, and yourself.
Great.
Dr. Mullen, I'm following a fairly vigorous exercise schedule. I've participated in some local triathlons and endurance events.
Good.
Through the last couple of years, I guess mostly by trial and error and by some experimentation, I've developed a diet that I feel very comfortable with, more or less along your lines, lower in fat than the North American average, not too much red meat, a lot of fowl, leafy greens, all of that good stuff. I was wondering, what is your opinion about the use of vitamin and mineral supplements along with diets like that for someone who is fairly active?
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, that the addition of using supplements in a diet, if it's a vegetarian diet or a semi-vegetarian diet, I don't think is necessary as long as you are eating properly. As far as I'm concerned, the addition of those will benefit some people, but for the majority of people, it will do very little. About 1 in every 3 Americans takes vitamins and supplements. Now, whether they find it to be beneficial for them or not is a very controversial area. However, the scientific literature does not suggest that these vitamins are in any way beneficial. we've taken athletes, and research studies have taken athletes and put them on vitamin and mineral supplements to see if it increased their endurance over periods of like 3 to 4 months, and it has been found that the vitamin supplements did not increase their endurance at all.
Right. Is there any danger? I've read several articles that have indicated there might be a danger, as a matter of fact, using supplements. There might be, well, not a disease, but a discomfort that you can experience from overloading with specific vitamins or minerals.
Yeah, well, there is a disease called hypervitaminosis, which is an increase in excess of taking vitamins, what we call taking mega doses of vitamins.
Right.
Generally, 10 times the recommended daily allowance is considered to be a mega dose.
Right. So in your opinion, if someone was following a diet that included the recommended daily allowances of all the vital vitamins and minerals that you needed and was comfortable with that kind of diet, then they would not have to use supplements.
Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. See, there's vitamins B and vitamin C are water soluble, so that they'll be passed out of the system.
Right.
And vitamins A and vitamins D and E are non-soluble, and therefore, if taken in excess, they may be toxic.
Would there be a possibility on a low-fat diet that you would not be able to absorb the vitamins from the food?
No, because the fats are not what are the contributing factors towards the vitamins. You'll get most of your vitamins from your high-carbohydrate food.
Okay, sir.
I thought the fats were needed to carry the vitamins, if you will, into the system.
Yeah, there's a minimal amount of fat which the body stores.
Okay.
So because we store that amount of fat, we don't necessarily have to be eating it every day.
All right.
Thank you for calling. You're on Exchange.
Good morning, Dr. Mullen.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. Well, almost. Can you explain sciatica to me and tell me what triggers it? And should you do exercise, or can anything be done to prevent future attacks?
Sure. Sciatica is a nerve. The sciatic nerve runs down the back of the leg and through the buttocks area and it comes out from the spine. And so you'll get numbness and you can get tingling all the way down the leg. You can get severe pain from it. And generally what we suggest for that is a lot of stretching exercises for the low back. And these stretching exercises, one specific one, and if you can kind of picture this in your mind, is sitting on the floor with the soles of your feet together and your knees bent, and then bringing your head all the way down to your toes, or as close as you possibly can, and that will help to stretch out those muscles in the low back, potentially taking pressure off that sciatic nerve. And that should be done in basically 3 or 4 times a day.
Now, would you do this while you're suffering? I'm on Indocid right now, and I'll soon be finished the medication.
While you're taking any of the anti-inflammatory drugs, that's perfectly okay.
But you will go ahead and exercise while you're taking them.
Sure, because you're just doing stretching, but you're doing static stretching, holding one position. You don't want to bounce or anything like that.
Oh,
In addition, you probably should be getting some physical therapy for it, too.
So that's the one exercise you would suggest then, is just sitting with your feet together?
Yeah, the soles of feet, I think that's an excellent one. And then the other one is with your soles of your feet together, your back against the wall, and then put your hands on your knees and try to just bring your knees all the way flat onto the ground.
Okay, then. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling. Yes, you're on Exchange with Dr. Mullen.
Good day, Doctor.
Good day. How are you?
Fine, thanks. I'm 81 years old, and I've got a heart pacer in.
Okay.
I got a pacer in.
Okay.
I ride a stationary bike about 15 minutes a day. Is there any other exercise that I should be taking?
Well, if you're riding the stationary bike for 15 minutes, what I think you should probably do is just try to increase that. Try to increase that up to 30 minutes a day. As long as the pacemaker is working adequately, then you shouldn't be having any additional problems with increasing that to a little bit more.
I see. Okay.
Thank you for calling Exchange, and we just have 20 minutes left with Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert, founder of the Mollen Method of Staying Fit, and we're speaking with him, and you're speaking with him, in Phoenix, Arizona, 7900991. I'd like to take as many calls on any aspect of health and physical fitness that you can raise in the next 15 or 20 minutes with Dr. Mollen. You're on Exchange.
Yeah, good morning, Dr. Mullen.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, yourself? Do you have any knowledge of the equipment which duplicates cross-country skiing?
I have some knowledge of it, yes.
Do you think it's good equipment?
Oh yeah, no, I think that's excellent equipment. A lot of the Olympic ski teams have been using that in the off season, and it's been suggested that it may even increase your cardiovascular endurance a little more than the actual event itself, because it puts a little more stress on there. For the average person to use one of those machines, every day, that might be difficult for them to do that, simply because of the fact of the motivational factor involved. But I think it's an excellent way to increase your cardiovascular endurance.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. A quick question for me, Dr. Mollen. Do women who want to exercise need to take any special precautions?
I think women who exercise should take the same precautions as men. I think they should go slowly in the beginning. I think they should do a lot of stretching exercises to reduce the early aches and pains of a program, and I think they should advance at a rate that is comfortable to them and just kind of be sensible, just basic sensible guidelines. Women who decide they want to do some weight training, that's perfectly okay. Weight training will not build large muscles. Is one of the great myths of the last decade was thought that women who weight train would develop that Herculean type physique. That's not true, and so they can pursue weight training as well as any of the other exercises, the walking, the jogging, the bicycling, the swimming, and again, no other precautions other than what men would take.
Are there any special exercises that are particularly appropriate for women?
The only other exercises that I would suggest that men that women do probably would be like a program where they would be jumping rope. I think is an excellent one. I think the mini trampolines are excellent, and I think also there's a good program in terms of the aerobic dance programs are also excellent.
Okay, back to the callers with Dr. Mollen. You're on Exchange.
Yes, Dr. Mollen, what a tremendous program. You should be on once a month.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great. Some of my answers have been answered, but I have been affected about 3 years ago with a lot of stress from a crime. Was getting over it, and then I had another one about 9 months ago. I have been on pills, but have been trying to stay off of them because I even hate taking aspirin. And I'm wondering if there's any kind of, any special food that I should be taking to help me through some of the stress problem, like anything that I should be eating a lot of, or,
Right. I think that stress tablets are fine for you to be taking, but I don't think there's an exceptional amount of the stress tabs that you need to be taking. Again, I think that you should try to follow a recommended daily allowance of any of these stress tablets. Mega doses of any of those vitamins can be potentially dangerous.
What about my cholesterol? I just had a medical as 180. I'm 61 years old and weigh 168 pounds.
160 pounds?
No, about 168 pounds, and I'm 61.
Okay. Are you doing any exercise program?
I'm doing some. Not so much in the summer. Well, what I do is get out and walk in the summer, but in the fall when the exercise programs are on, I try to go 2-3 nights a week for an hour of aerobic, etc., Yeah.
What I'd probably like to see you do is start a regular walking program. Every day, if you can, either that or a stationary bike, because of the temperatures that you have in Canada there. Probably walking 2 miles a day would be an excellent exercise. And if you walk 2 miles a day, you'd burn up 200 calories every day, and then over a period of approximately 30 days, you would lose a minimum of 10 pounds without altering your eating habits at all.
What about leg cramps? I don't get them often, but when I get one, boy, it just really drives me bananas. And I'll get them sometimes in the upper part of my leg. Sometimes I'll get it down in the lower part of my calf. But I get so bad that I'll either have to put hot compresses on. Nothing else seems to relieve it.
I think if you're getting cramping in your legs, and most research studies have suggested that they're not due to mineral deficiencies, but they're more due to just a lack of stretching exercises. And so if you did some stretching exercises, such as standing on a step, going up and down on your toes, and then letting your heels hang over, I think that would be beneficial for you.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. You're on exchange.
Yes, doctor. Good morning. I was wondering, are you familiar at all with the chemical, or the drug rather, hydrogueril?
Hydrodiaril, yeah, sure. It's a diuretic, and it's used for hypertension.
Well, it's for hypertension.
Yes.
I thought it was for reduction of calcium content in one's system.
Hydrodiaril?
Yes.
Generally, we use that as an anti-hypertensive medication.
And it has nothing to do with the reduction of calcium content?
I've never used it for the reduction of calcium content.
I see. Does it also have effect on potassium content in one's system?
Well, it will potentially lower potassium levels in the body, just as all diuretics will. Any water pill will potentially lower it. Now, some water pills, such as Diazide, will not lower potassium quite as much as some of the others. Now, if hydrodiaril has a calcium retaining effect on the body, then it must be one of the other pharmacological effects, which I would not be familiar with, not being a pharmacologist.
I see. Now, one other thing I wanted to ask you. Anyone, for example, that takes carrots, celery, onion in the form of, let's say, passing it through the blender rather than eating it as a whole, is that recommended by you, or
pass it through the blender instead?
Yeah.
I don't think that unless you have severe stomach problems, I don't think that passing it through the blender is going to be any more advantageous or beneficial to you than simply eating it whole.
I see.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for calling Exchange, and we will be right back. We have less than 15 minutes left with Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert, founder of the Mollen Method of Staying Fit, speaking with him in Phoenix, Arizona. Right back to your calls after this short break. Back on Exchange with Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert, Phoenix, Arizona. I'd like to take as many calls as we could in the last 10 minutes. You're on Exchange.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Dr. Mullen. I love walking. You know, I do a lot of walking, but I always find myself, I'm wearing high heels when I'm doing a lot of walking. And and sometimes I get an attack of the most excruciating pain in my leg from the groin all the way down. Do you think it's from the high heels, or is that something else?
I think it's probably more from the lack of stretching exercises. I think the high heels can be a contributory factor. When women wear high heels, it has a tendency to shorten their Achilles tendons. That's the little tendons behind the heel. And if you shorten those tendons a little bit, and then all of a sudden, or you're wearing high heels all day long, and then all of a sudden you go down into a flat heel to start walking, then you have a potential of causing extra stretching on that muscle, and even some dangers in terms of actually rupturing the Achilles tendon. So I think the groin pull sometimes can be a compensation from the fact that you're wearing high heels and you're stretching, trying to stretch out that Achilles tendon a little. I think if you did some stretching, you'd be able to overcome all that problem.
The exercise, is important.
Okay, ma'am.
Stretching.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling. You're on Exchange.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm a mother of two kids, and I'm 25 years old. And after my last kids, I used to weigh 195, but now I'm down to 130.
Great.
But on my lower hips, there's nothing moving from there. I have a broad hips. Is there anything you could tell me to do for that?
Yeah. Well, probably you need to do some type, again, of aerobic exercise. You need to do, whether it's walking or aerobic dance or bicycling, I think some type of exercise, number one, aerobic, to lose a little more weight, probably, and in addition to help mobilize and move that fat around that's located on your hips and in your waist.
And what about your tummy? What do I do for the tummy?
Well, then, for your stomach, in order to lose the weight will come off of there with the aerobic exercise, but in addition, you might do some isometric-type exercises like sit-ups.
Yeah.
And just holding your legs up, leg raises, 6 inches off the ground, and just tightening your abdominal muscles.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for calling. You're on Exchange.
Hello?
Good morning.
Hello?
How are you?
Fine, thank you. I want to tell you that I have a cholesterol of 278.
Okay.
Seem to reduce it. And I was told not to eat sweets, and especially I like avocado, and I was told not to eat that.
Right. Well, any type of fats, the cheeses, the milks, the creams, the butters, avocados, which are about 400 calories for one little avocado, anything like that will, of course, increase your cholesterol level. However, what will help the most in terms of lowering it will be exercise.
Exercise will lower it. What about sugar?
Well, the sugars, again, will not be a direct link to elevating your cholesterol level. The cholesterol, of course, is a fat and is directly linked to the fat. So the sugar factor will just put on additional calories and may be a secondary factor, but the sugars are not the direct link.
And cakes?
Cakes?
Yes.
Yeah, any of the cakes, again, the cakes have fats in them also. So many of the foods that we eat, which have sugars are not such a great offender. It's the things that go along with the sugars.
A cake has the eggs and the other fattening things. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for calling. You're on exchange. You were on exchange, and we're going to another line right here. You're on exchange.
Hello, Dr. Mollen?
Yes, how are you?
Okay, how are you?
Fine.
Good, it's a wonderful program. Now, the question that I had, I think it had already come up with the cramps in the legs. Now, it's like a Charlie horse that I get at night in bed.
Right, and we've tried various medications for Charlie horses and things like that, and over the years they've used quinine, sulfate, and various medications that have not been as effective as simply having people do stretching exercises.
Now, I do, I don't know what you call stretching exercises. I do circles, sit-ups, jumping, stationary bicycle, and my daily exercise that I do every morning.
I mean just stretching for your calf muscles. In other words, standing on a step, going up and down on your toes, your heels hang over, things like that.
Just the legs and the feet. Is that what you mean by stretching?
Yes.
I see. And there's nothing else, like there's nothing that's lacking in my calcium or anything that's lacking in your diet that is causing that?
No. Again, I think if you were to have blood tests taken, you would find that mineral deficiencies are very few and far between in people who are having cramping.
I see.
It's a very, very rare thing.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for calling. 790-0991. Time for a number of more calls with Dr. Mollen. Yes, you're on.
I want to ask you, you see, about 2 years ago, I had an operation on a blood clot, and I've recovered very nicely. And right now, regarding the exercise, you know, I'm under many pills during the day, and about doing the exercise, I do walking, but not too much, because when I keep on walking a couple of blocks, I have to sit down and relax for about 5-10 minutes, and then continue walking again, you know, for a couple of blocks and relax, because my chest gets to be kind of stiff, you see, so that's why I wanted to find out, you see, if I can continue on walking and resting and walking.
So I think that's the best way to do that, and you know, I admire people like yourself who will go out and do that. Many people who will have the chest pain will just sit there and just feel like, well, they're crippled, they can't go any further, and they're not going to exercise. So I think that's an excellent way to do it, is to go out and walk as far as you can, sit down and rest for a little while, and then continue walking, and then stop and just do your program like that. And that's very admirable.
Yeah, because it doesn't take long for the pain, just for 5-10 seconds, and then I can continue walking. You know, when it's a little upgrade, downgrade, I can walk for miles. You see,
sure.
Upgrade, you see.
Thank you, sir, for calling. You're on exchange.
Oh, doctor.
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine. I wonder if you can recommend any exercise for me that has a very slow heartbeat, 43 in the morning.
Right.
How could I get it to, move on a bit?
Yeah, well, I think if you have a low resting heart rate, that is only something which will be beneficial to you. It means that your heart is...
I'm old, by the way, 75.
Pardon?
I'm old. I'm 75.
Right, and you'll probably live to be 175. A low heart rate is certainly an excellent factor in terms of showing that the efficiency of your heart is very good. So it means that your heart probably will continue to beat well into your hundreds. So I don't think you want to elevate that pulse rate at all, and I wouldn't be concerned about it.
Oh, that's good news. I thought it was too low.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling. You're on Exchange.
Yes, hello, Dr. Mullen.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I'd like to know, is it a bad idea to have breakfast before doing the morning exercises?
Yeah, I think that people should exercise on an empty stomach, and simply because of the fact that there's not anything in the stomach, and that means that all the blood that is required and all the oxygen will go out to the muscles.
Oh, I see.
And when you exercise, you need as much blood and oxygen in those muscles as possible. But if you put something in your stomach, a lot of the blood rushes to the stomach to digest the food.
I see.
Where you don't get as much out to to your legs and to your arms, and that's why when it's always been recommended that people not go swimming immediately after eating, and that's simply the reason.
Oh, I see.
Not for cramps or anything else. The only reason that people shouldn't go swimming immediately after eating is simply because of the fact that there's not enough oxygen and blood going to the muscles, because some of it's going to have to be in the stomach to digest the food.
Thank you, ma'am, for calling. That's all the time we have. We have had an avalanche of calls for Dr. Mullen. Dr. Mullen, I want to wish you good fortune with your book, Run for Your Life, and with your new book, The Mullen Method, which will be coming out when, do you expect?
Well, within the next 6 months.
Within the next 6 months. We've been talking with Dr. Art Mollen, osteopath and fitness expert, founder of the Mullen Method in Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you again, Dr. Mullen.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I'd just like to wish everybody good health.
Thank you again, and I hope now that we are going to shift gears. I'm sorry we weren't able to take all the calls. We were flooded with calls all this hour. Second hour, we're shifting gears to lemons and laurels after we have this break for news. Our news at 11 o'clock, 800 CJAD with Bob McGregor.
Hour 2 of Exchange with Neil McKenty. Call 790-0991. That's 790-0991.
Good Wednesday morning again from Neil McKenty on this second hour of Exchange. Shifting gears this hour, asking who's your choice for a lemon and laurel. The Queen was willing to come to Canada during the election campaign. We know that now. The Queen was convinced by her British advisers not to come. The Queen then rejected the advice of her Canadian advisers to come. Is the Queen of Canada subject to the advice of her British or Canadian advisers? Would you give her British advisers a lemon? Do you think Canadians should review whether we need to retain the British monarchy? 790-0991. The PQ government's now ready to spend $70 million plus for a roof on the Olympic Stadium. More likely, I think, $100 million in the end. Experts now say they're not sure the roof is in fit condition to use. How can the separatist government find $70 million plus for a stadium roof and not find more than $5 a day for welfare recipients? How can they find $70 million and they can't find money for hospital beds and sick people? Does another $70 million for the Big O deserve a lemon? Would you give a lemon to the authorities who gassed and kicked prisoners at Archambault prison? 790-0991. Former Montreal politician Gerard Needing, right-hand man of the mayor, was fined $75,000 for bribery. If he didn't pay the fine, Needing was supposed to go to jail. Needing has not paid a nickel on the fine, and he has had several postponements or extensions on his paying the fine. Does this deserve a lemon? Would the ordinary man in the street get regular postponements to pay a fine? Or when the time was up to pay the fine, would the ordinary guy in the street go to jail? The Church of England has ordained a bishop who doubts the virgin birth, the resurrection, and Christ's miracles. Does that deserve a lemon? 790-0991. Would you give a laurel to those who worked on the rescue of the Amtrak train survivors? Was anybody who was listening to Exchange on that train or had friends on the train? The Pope has condemned racial policies in South Africa, and he has called for the independence of Namibia, Southwest Africa. Would you give a laurel to the Pope? A laurel to Danny Galvin for his hockey broadcasts. Were you a fan of Danny Galvin? Did you listen to his hockey broadcasts? A lemon to all those in the fight card at the Forum last night who tried to scramble the brains of their opponents. A laurel to Charlie Lee and Gary Carter for their efforts on the All-Star Game. Lemons and Laurels, 7900991, welcoming first-time callers, long-time callers, long-distance callers. Reverse the charges. Right back after this short break. Back on Exchange, Lemons and Laurels. Yes, you're on Exchange.
Yes, I'd like to give more than one lemon to the Bank of Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Mackesy, he's a politician, and if he wants to get away with whatever it is he wants to get away with, I don't have much faith in the integrity of politicians these days. But I'm surprised at the Bank of Montreal, their governors. This morning, Gord Sinclair mentioned, doesn't anybody out there give a damn? Well, I give a damn, and I'd like to know if there's anything at all that I can do.
Well, you're talking, of course, about a case that's now before the courts, aren't you, ma'am?
Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that he was allowed to pay off much more than less than he has to pay.
Well, I don't know all the details, and as I say, I'm always a little nervous of discussing cases before the courts. Certainly, the officials of the Bank of Montreal have admitted that Mr. Mackesy's financial loans, etc., were treated differently than yours would have been or mine would have been.
For sure.
So the question then rises, and I suppose perhaps eventually will be answered, why did Mr. Bryce Mackesy get special treatment? Or put it the other way, why did the officials of the Bank of Montreal feel that Mr. Mackesy deserves special treatment?
Well, why does he?
I don't have any answer to that.
No, probably nobody does, and I think it's absolutely disgusting, and he should get special treatment.
Well, I think if
I really do.
So do I. So do I, ma'am. And I think that if you feel, I don't know if you're a customer of the bank.
I have stock in the Bank of Montreal.
Yeah. Well, people who have feel strongly about the way the Bank of Montreal handled this case and feel that it was rank favoritism or whatever, should consider whether they want to do business with the Bank of Montreal and whether they want to have stock.
Do you think if I sold my stock it wouldn't make any difference? I really don't think so. I think it has to be more than just one small voice. I really do. I mean, I'm not going to make any difference.
Well, yeah, that's the trouble, of course. If Martin Luther King...
Right, but it's true, though. I mean, I'm just one. And
yeah, but you're just one. But if Martin Luther King had said that, well, where would the situation be in the United States?
Well, I agree with you there. All right. I'll even write them a letter.
And you can write them a letter, and then, ma'am, you can do something else where pressure can be brought to bear perhaps a little more sharply.
Yes.
There is a banking committee in the Senate, and it is the most powerful committee in the Senate. And you might go to the trouble of finding out who is the chairman and who is on that banking committee. You might find that there's a senator from Montreal in the banking committee, and you might say that you want this matter of the Bank of Montreal's practice in giving loans and giving certain people very preferred treatment raised with Bank of Montreal officials before this banking committee.
Mm-hmm. I will do that.
So there are various avenues that you might explore.
I will.
Okay, ma'am.
No, there's one other thing.
Yeah.
Talking about the roof of the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah, the roof of the Olympic Stadium.
That's right. I brought my mother-in-law into the hospital 3 days ago to emergency.
Yeah.
There were no beds.
No.
She and about 25 other poor, suffering people had to sleep in the halls. Their dignity, it was absolutely shameful.
Yeah.
Shameful.
Yeah.
There was no beds, no room, no help.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
And yet these great social democrats, these great separatists who say they can run an independent country...
What can one do about that? Vote for somebody else? Of course we'll vote for somebody else, but will that help?
Oh, well, it won't hurt, ma'am. It certainly won't hurt. I think... if enough pressure were brought to bear, these people might reconsider spending $70 million of the taxpayers' dollar.
It's just shameful.
Yeah.
It really is. Those are my lemons.
Well, they're very good ones, ma'am. Thank you very much. A woman who wants to give a lemon to the Bank of Montreal for its peculiar lending policies. You're on exchange.
Mr. McKenty, I would very much like to give a lemon to all those people who want the Queen of England to come here. You know, I think she comes here for a good old-fashioned Canadian meal. Also, I think the Pope and all of these people, I think they're spies.
Well, wait a minute, ma'am. Before we get into the spying of the Pope, why are you opposed to the Queen of England coming here?
Well, she's been coming here so many times, I think people are used to it. I don't think that it's necessary. What does she do for Canada? We are no longer connected with England, and I really think that, you know, she likes the pomp and ceremony, which she does not get in her own country. One of your callers called in yesterday and said that very thing. She was from England, and she doesn't get so much recognition in the United States anymore either. These people do nothing. They just loaf off of people, and you know, with the conditions we're in now in Canada, the dollar, the unemployment situation, we can't afford all this money to be spent in all this.
Do you think the Queen of England's a parasite?
Oh, yes, I definitely do. I always thought that. Even my mother used to think that. You see, they don't do any work, and they just sit around and say, well, this year I'll go on this trip, and next year I'll go on another trip. You know, we all can't take trips when we feel like it, and I also think that gradually it will ease off.
All right. Now, what did you say about the Pope?
Well, as far as the Pope goes, I know I'll never go to see him. I'll never go to those masses or anything. I do think that a lot of these people, whether we think it or not, I think they're spying on countries. Comparing their country to our country or to Portugal or to United States or whatever countries, I really think that in a very some sort of a way they are spies.
What would the Pope be spying for?
Well, spying on the Catholic Church, how much money's coming in, and what kind of a situation we're in here, and mostly, I suppose, religion, and also maybe politics. You know, I don't...
Well, you know, the Pope is head of the Church. You use a strange word. If he were coming over here to see how much money's coming in, what would be the matter with that? After all, he's the head of the joint.
Yes, he is, but... I don't think he's getting as much money as he used to, but the fact is this pomp and ceremony has really got to go, because we have to build up Canada, and we need every cent we can get from in every direction.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. So a lemon, I guess, to the Queen, and a lemon to the Pope, who's coming to spy on the Catholic Church, which is a rather peculiar way to put it. You're on exchange.
Good morning, Mr. McKenty.
Morning, ma'am.
I have a lemon for the party that nominated Rod Blaker to the parole board. I feel that a man who really doesn't care to pay his bills, he was actually fighting against it, shouldn't be elected to a parole board.
Well, first of all, has Mr. Blaker accepted his nomination to the parole board?
I'm not sure.
No, but at any rate, you object to his being appointed to the parole board,
right?
Because he let bills run up in the parliamentary gallery.
That's right, and he was quite angry. And first he said he wouldn't pay for it, and then when all that hoo-ha came out, he paid it.
Yeah, the parliamentary dining room.
Right.
Right. So you think Mr. Blaker should not have been? Should Mr. Blaker have got any appointment?
I don't think so. I think just the same as Mr. McAfee, he shouldn't have gotten anything, because there's too much mystery surrounding their little things, you know, the little things that they do, and then when it comes out into the public, we find out that it's not right.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
Lemons because of appointments of Mr. McAfee to Portugal and Mr. Blaker to the parole board. You're on exchange.
Morning, Mr. McKenty.
Morning, sir.
My name is Brasso, and I'm calling you from Saint-Jean.
Yes, Mr. Brasso, how's the weather in Saint-Jean?
It's a rainy day.
Too bad.
Rain is a very important thing. We need rain.
Yeah, I know. I know. Have you got strawberries up there?
Of course. We have everything around here, even courage.
I know. The best strawberries in the world.
Well, they're very best.
Quebec strawberries.
the very best for very sure, and have courage also.
What's on your mind, Mr. Basso?
Tell you this, Mr. McKenty, this morning, concerning royalty, monarchy, and all that. As far as I am concerned, English Canada can have their British Queen as much as they like. But my country, Quebec, should get rid of all that as fast as possible, should get rid of all that royal nonsense, and become a French language republic as fast as possible. It stands to reason, Mr. McKenty, that if English Canada lost their British crown, there would be no more difference between them and the United States. Therefore, they can have their British Queen as much as they like. But one day, Quebec will withdraw from that stupid and damn confederation and become a French-speaking republic. And I hope that happens as fast as possible. English Canada can be English as much as they like. They can be British, more British than England herself. I couldn't give a damn. But my country, Quebec, is going to become French. I thank you very much, Mr. McKenty.
Thank you, Mr. Basso. You're on Exchange.
Good morning, Mr. McKenty.
Morning, sir.
I have a big laurel for Danny Gallivan.
A big laurel for Danny Gallivan.
For the immeasurable contribution he's made to hockey, both in the country and for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
They'll be able to find a replacement for Danny, but they won't be able to find someone who had his style in broadcasting a game. That's for sure.
I agree.
I also have a big lemon to the Peltier Québécois government for spending the amount of money they intend to on the roof. I'm with you on that. I think it's a tragedy that they'd spend money on that when there are so many more pressing issues that demand allocations of money.
Yeah.
And it just indicates once again the screwed up priorities of this government. They really have lost touch with the people. They are now only concentrating on fulfilling their own goals at any cost, and it's a real tragedy.
Yeah, I think they have lost touch with the people. I don't know how to put this, but if they're bound to spend that money, as they probably are, and I predict it will go to $100 million, then now the supposition is they're going to spend it. If they're going to spend it, and it's going to be about $100 million, and we're not even sure the roof is going to work, I would be in favor of their starting a new stadium.
I think to start a new one would maybe even cost more.
Well, not too much. No, they'd be within the ballpark. If you look over the stadiums that are built in British Columbia, the stadia in the United States, we could build a stadium for about $100 million, and it would be much more effective in terms of seating and seeing the games than the stadium we've got out there now, which was built for track and field.
What do we do with the gaping dish that we have right now, if they were to do that?
That'd be we could have a contest. We could I don't know. We could show it as the Roman show ruins. I don't know what we could do. We could tear it down. But I think if we started all over again with $100 million, we'd be far better off in the end.
Mr. McKinney, I think it would be very painful for any Quebecer to realize how much money had been put into that gaping dish in the first place,
and wasted,
and then to show people around and to show it as a great Roman ruins would be even more painful. I
know, and I think really you've put your finger on it. I think the $70 million is because the Parti Québécois people cannot admit that they blew it out there. And
I hope that the polls continue to be accurate, and it would be for the best for this province and for the country as a whole to see this government kicked out on their cans.
Yeah.
And that's all I can say in the Peltier Québécois.
Yeah.
I have also a laurel for the Pope.
Yeah.
For his comments on Namibia and South Africa.
Yeah.
it still remains a puzzle to me that this government, this white minority rule government in South Africa, continues to rule the area. Apparently, Namibia is rich in minerals, and I suppose that's the only reason they're there.
Yeah.
I think it's time that the blacks in South Africa get their government, get independence in Namibia, and I'd like to see it. And I think anything that the Pope can say and anybody else in authority and influence would be helpful.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for calling Exchange. Lemons and Laurels. Yes, you're on Exchange. Go ahead, please.
McKenty.
Yeah.
I'm the parent of a survivor of the Amtrak wreck.
Oh, we're glad to hear from you, sir.
Yes. So, what have I got to tell you?
Well, I'd like to know how you feel about the way the whole thing occurred and the way the rescue operation was carried out. Were you satisfied?
Well, I'll tell you what we know.
Yes.
She boarded the train in New York Friday night.
Right.
And the first thing she knew about an accident was when the train went off the track, and it woke her up.
This would have been, what, early in the morning?
Yeah, it happened around 7.
Okay, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and the first word we had of the wreck was we were listening to CJAD, and they told us of the wreck.
Yeah.
And then we connected it with my daughter, and we started to worry.
Yes.
But anyways, the cars piled up down the embankment, and one of them ended up on top of the sleeper that she was in.
Yes.
Then she said the help was pretty quick in coming. They had these crews there.
Yes.
And they could hear her, but they couldn't see her, and they were trying to get directions from her as to where they'd put the saws in or where to put the bars in to free them.
And how old is your daughter?
Well, she's 46 now.
Okay, right.
Now, this took about, anyways, that started at about 7:30 when the crews came in, and it wasn't until between 1 and 2 o'clock that they finally got her out through a hole they cut in the side of the car. But it was pretty hectic all that time.
I guess so.
And she was able to communicate with the person in the next compartment. They were keeping in touch by rapping.
I see.
No, she'd rap, and they both thought they were finished, you know.
Yes.
And he'd rap back, and that kept on for quite a while. But eventually they got her out, put her on a plank, and put her into a helicopter, and applied that drip, you know what I mean?
Yes.
For the blood.
Yeah.
And the helicopter took her to a van, and the van took her to the hospital where they did the patching up. And she had 5 or 6 stitches over her eye, and multiple bruises and cuts all over her body, you know.
Yes.
But anyway, and a very bad shoulder. Something must have fallen on her or fallen against her. But as far as she could see, the whole compartment had closed in on her.
Yes, yeah, just kind of like an accordion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is she home now?
Well, she's not home at this moment, but she came home Saturday on one of those buses they brought in from Burlington.
Yeah.
And my daughter, my other daughter from Ottawa, went to meet her, and all she had on was the dress she had in the train, and it was covered with blood.
Yeah.
And so she lost everything. But since that time, they've recovered a metal suitcase she had. But her handbag and her cameras and all that stuff her identifications are all missing.
Now, mentally, is she pretty well recovered from this trauma?
Yeah, well, she was in pretty bad shock, you know.
Yeah.
And they gave her a tetanus shot, too, because she was cut by some metal, you know.
Yeah.
But I think things are improving. She's downtown now trying to get her passport straightened out because she lost it, you know.
Yeah. Well, sir, we thank you for calling and sharing that very sad thing. It's fortunate that everything turned out well for your daughter.
Yeah, well, in the meantime, I must tell you that she's a ballet teacher, and she lives in Sweden, and that's where her home is now.
So she was over here visiting?
She was over here visiting us on
I see.
5-week vacation.
And she'll be going back to teach ballet in Sweden?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good to hear from you. You're on Exchange.
Hi.
You're. What happened here? You're on Exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My lemon is for Bryce Mackesy.
Your lemon is for Bryce Mackesy.
I'm the Bank of Montreal.
Yeah.
Because of the giving him a receipt for interest not paid in the tune of 5 figures. Now he could deduct that from income tax.
Well, I don't, ma'am. I'm a little leery of speculating about what he did and who did.
You're saying what the Bank of Montreal had in the Gazette yesterday.
Yes. Well, we're dealing with a matter that's before the courts, and we don't know what was done with the receipt. So I'm leery of getting into specifics here. I don't
ask you to agree with me. I'm just expressing my opinion.
Well, ma'am, my problem is this: that when you express an opinion on this program, it can be a very wide-ranging opinion.
Well, I think he's a pretty poor...
But it certainly cannot unjustly hurt a third party.
Oh.
And I would prefer normally in court cases to wait until the case is finished.
Okay.
Until we start...
But I don't think he's a very good representative to Portugal as an ambassador.
All right. Now, that's a different thing. You would have preferred that Mr. Turner, at the end of a gun held by Mr. Trudeau, had not appointed Mr. Mackesy ambassador to Portugal.
Definitely. It's a very, very poor choice.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, ma'am. I hope I don't seem too meticulous about the trial business. This is a preliminary hearing, and I really think that if you or I were involved in a preliminary hearing, we would not want it commented on until some disposition of our case had been made. We'll be right back after this short break. Back on Exchange, CJAD, 1137, Lemons and Laurels, lines blazing. You're on Exchange.
Good morning, Neil.
Morning.
First, lemon to the lady that called in about the Queen and the Pope.
Uh-huh.
I think she should take a long trip.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, sir.
The next one is a lemon. I think it would have to be directed to the administration of the St. Justine Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding that 8-year-old Honduran boy.
Yes.
That needs the heart operation.
Yes.
Well, for goodness sake, what's going on? A child is going to be left to die because the hospital needs to be paid?
I don't know exactly the details. Is the reason the child is not being operated on due exclusively to money?
Well, I don't know if it's exclusively to money, but that seems to be the main reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, sir. You feel that the hospital should be a little more liberal in the matter of this operation?
Dr. Furlong said that he would be glad to donate his time to prepare the child for the operation.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody must pay for the hospital costs.
Mm-hmm. This leads us, to the problem of the allocation of monies for hospitals. You have a child who needs an operation, and it's delayed for reasons of budgetary reasons. You have people in Montreal who are dying because they can't get heart and other operations because of budgetary reasons. Somebody has to make these choices.
Well, I think it's time that people got together and force the issue.
Well, the issue, sir, is that...
And it comes down to lives being lost because of budgetary expenses.
Yeah, the issue is that there is not an unlimited health dollar. There is not an unlimited health dollar. Choices have to be made. It's a terrible situation, but that's the way it is here and in the United States and everywhere else.
I think we can't worry about everywhere else, but it's time we started doing something about people's lives here.
Okay, then you ought to make this, try to make it a major issue with your candidates in the coming federal election.
I think I will, and I'll get a lot of other people involved in it, too.
I hope you do.
Okay, Neil.
Okay, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you for calling Exchange. You're on Exchange.
Morning, Mr. McKenty. I have a lemon for LaRonde.
LaRonde, all right.
I didn't realize how expensive the fees were this year, but I went with my little boy yesterday, and it was $13 for an adult
Yeah.
and $8 for a child.
That's what, for the day?
That's for the day.
Yeah. It's
apparently for a family, it's slightly over, I think, $30.
yeah, I haven't been over there this year, but I think those what do you call them, the visas or whatever they are quite expensive.
So it's like little bracelets they give you.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, are the fees this high simply because Belmont Park is closed? Or where is all this extra money going to that they're hoping to make?
Now, it's $13 for an adult at LaRonde and $8 for a child. What does that permit you to do?
You go on the rides.
You can go on the rides, as all the rides and as often as you want?
That's right.
Uh-huh. And that's it?
That's right.
And it gives you entrance into the
LaRonde area.
Now, what if you don't want to bother with any rides? How much does it cost you to get in?
It's $4.
Oh, for an adult?
For an adult, I think it's $4 for anyone.
$4 for anyone.
No.
Yeah. So I don't, I'd like to hear from others. You feel that 13 for an adult, 8 for a child. If you had 3 or 4 children, it would be very expensive, wouldn't it?
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah.
Can I just mention something about the Olympic Stadium?
Indeed.
I say paint it white and put it in all the tourist brochures. This is Quebec's white elephant. Show them the cracks in the cement. Show them how some of the chairs don't work properly. Yeah. Point out all our good points and bad points. Charge the tourists a certain admission, and hopefully pay for it somehow that way.
Maybe we could, make it the greatest white elephant in the world. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling. It really is a depressing thing, that Olympic Stadium. And the report that the mayor was supposed to come out, he's not written any report yet. You're on Exchange.
Yes, good morning, Mr. McKenty.
Morning, sir.
Mr. McKenty, I strongly believe that if the Pope and the Queen had any morals or decency within them, in their soul, they would certainly abandon their trip or get in touch with our government and say, now listen, the money you've raised already for our trips, why don't you kindly build hospitals or donate that money towards new hospitals, and we'll send you the rest from Britain and Rome, because Quebecers been always such good to us, and they've been outstanding citizens toward the church and the crown for all these years. Now, I think that'd be more appropriate for the people of Quebec. Now, my next lemon goes to the province of Quebec for putting this roof on the Olympic Stadium. But on the other hand, Mr. McKenty, I remember here before the war, Quebecers never had it so good. They don't mind this at all, Mr. McKenty. They've never had it so good, sir.
What do you mean we've never had it so good?
In Quebec, we've never had the money flows like wine here. We've never had it so good, Mr. McKenty. I don't care what the Quebec government does. It's a bad thing they're doing with our money, but the Quebecers don't mind that, Mr. McKenty.
Sure, we've got 20 or 20...
No, we don't mind at all.
We got 20 or 25% of young Quebecers out of work. What do you mean we're having it?
Sir, they love it.
I see.
They love it, Mr. McKenty.
I see. Now, I want to go back to your first point.
Yes, if they had any decency, Mr. McKenty, they should be building us hospitals here. The Queen of Britain there and the Pope regime there. They should be because Quebecers have always been faithful to the Pope and the Queen all these years, sir.
So
for hundreds of years we've been faithful to the Crown and the Pope. They should build us a hospital and say, here, we'll come over free of charge and bless them for you.
So would you prefer the Pope and the Queen stay at home?
Certainly, sir. Certainly, unless they pay their own money, or I'll go pick them up in a motorboat or a rowboat.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling Exchange. You're on Exchange.
Good morning, sir. First-time caller.
Welcome to Exchange.
Thank you. I have a lemon for Nick Aufdemauer. I, however, would like to add some sugar to it because I've always enjoyed his editorial comments. I was listening to Free For All on Saturday.
Yes.
And I think the way he spoke, the way he reacted to what was being said was so unprofessional, so ungentlemanly-like, that I was so disappointed after I had listened to the program. Now, I think I've heard that he's running for the Conservatives. The way he went at Turner, I think that was hitting below the belt. And if you want to run in a campaign, I think this is the last thing he should consort to.
I'm trying to remember, in your perception, did Mr. Oftermar attack Mr. Turner?
Yeah, but in a very sleazy, ungentlemanlike, unprofessional way. Okay. I like when people criticize each other. That's what politics are all about.
Yeah.
But the way he went about it, if that's the way he's going to run his campaign here in NDG, I'm sure he won't get any votes.
Now, just to fill me in, who is expected to be the Liberal candidate in NDG?
The Liberal, I don't know, but I heard that Nick Oftermauer would run in NDG.
Well, I think it's just speculation so far that he's thinking about it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I thought he was making his bed ready for it, the way he went at Turner and at the Liberals. And I think it was really uncalled for. Play the tape back, Mr. McKenty, if you have a minute. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize.
No, that's your perception. That's fine. And I will play the tape back and see what happened.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. We're asking Lemons and Laurels right back. 15 minutes left after this short break. Back on Exchange. Back to the callers. Like take as many as we could. You're on Exchange.
Good morning.
Morning.
Laurel to Finance Minister, Mr. Parizeau.
Why, ma'am?
Why? Has nobody made the connection between putting the roof on the Olympic Stadium and the price of wine these days? If he would raise the price of all spirits, that roof would be on, and there would be less mayhem on the roads, and then you would really find out who it is that's causing all the accidents. Make the spirits less accessible to the low man, and
So raise taxes very high on alcohol and wine.
Right, and put the roof on the stadium. That's one way. Let the Sox pay for the roof, and they'll be happy. They'll be drinking themselves silly there in the stadium, and the roof will be paid for, and you'll have less carnage on the roads.
Thank you, ma'am, for calling Exchange. You're on Exchange.
Oh, I would like to give a lemon to part of the media who continually give headlines, Quebec losing people, as if they were all rushing away. But it is not always by their own free will, and when their company moves, they have practically no choice.
Right.
Many after they have moved find that within a few months or years they have been laid off.
Yes.
With very high mortgage rates, especially in Toronto,
Yep.
to pay for housing and little or no prospect to find other jobs after many have spent more than 20 years with their companies.
Yep.
Many I would consider are now practically stranded and now in very great debt because many of the houses, by the time they put on their mortgage rates, come up to about $250,000.
Yeah.
And I know personally quite a number who have been taken up by their companies, insurance companies, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been left stranded there, $250,000 in debt.
Mm-hmm.
Quite happy staying here or being laid off here. But they seem to isolate them. And then we say in the Saturday's Gazette, language law is not only reason for big exodus. It's these companies in many, many cases that are taking these people to other places and stranding them outside of Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my lemon to part of the media and these companies, corporations, insurance companies, etc., that are taking people away and stranding them outside their normal territory.
I think it's a good point, sir, and I'm glad you made it.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you for calling. You're on Exchange.
Hello, Neil.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
I think Mr. Barassa should get a lemon. Is the name Barassa? Barasso.
Oh, Mr. Brasso from yes, okay.
I think you should have said something. We Canadians, we want the Queen and the Pope here. If he doesn't care about it, he's only talking about the Parti Québécois and not the other people who want the Queen and the Pope here.
Well, sir, I prefer. Mr. Brasso spoke for himself, and I guess for some Quebecers that
we people,
Yeah.
we don't want the Queen here. He used the word we.
Yeah, and who are you speaking for, sir?
I'm speaking for we Canadians. I've got French blood too in me. And
Well, what do you
I think
mean,
the
we
Queen
Canadians? There are 25 million Canadians. Do you speak for them?
Pardon?
Do you speak for 25 million Canadians?
Yeah, I speak for all the Canadians who I deal with, and they all want the Queen here. And even people who are from outside this country, like West Indies and people like that, are longing to see the Queen.
Let me tell you, sir, if there were a vote nationwide on whether or not to retain the monarchy in this country at this time, I'm not sure that would pass.
But,
So the idea that you speak for all Canadians is rubbish.
Why? Why? How do you mean rubbish?
Because
I'm talking about people who I mix with in office.
Well, all right.
Different nationalities, or West Indies.
Well, all right, sir. Do you mix with 100 or 200 or how many?
But Baressa is only speaking for the Quebec. He says he's talking about for the Quebecois. He said we don't want the Queen here. Who is he to say that?
Sir, well, perhaps you could tell me, would you like the Queen to come?
Sure.
Yeah. Why?
Because, I mean, she's done a lot for the whole country, England, and for Canada, too. How come did she come and sign the Constitution? She came here and did a lot of things for Canada.
Okay. If you want her to come, that's fine.
Yeah. Another thing, the gentleman who also called and said we don't want them down here, and I give him a lemon, too.
Okay, sir.
And Mr. Levesque, I think this country has gone down the drain. It should have been... we shouldn't spend money on the Olympic roof. Instead of that, look into the hospitals and see the poor plight down there. People are in corridors and can't get a bed to sleep on.
So, would you not spend $70 million on the roof?
No, sir, not at all. When we are in a hell of a precarious condition down here in Quebec now, we can't. We've got no money left.
Okay, sir. Thank you for calling Exchange. You're on Exchange.
Hi, good morning, Neil.
Morning, ma'am.
You know what I'd like to see? Them take that Olympic Stadium down. Sell the pieces. I'd buy a piece for my patio.
All right, that's not a bad idea.
You know, and they'll get some money that way and give it to where it's needed. Never mind that blooming Olympic. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about the Olympic roof, the Olympic roof. You know, I bought a little gold charm when the Olympics was on, and it's got that roof on it. And you know, people say to me, is that a ship? You know, and it's kind of funny because, let's face it, this is supposed to represent the Olympic Stadium with the fancy roof on it, and it doesn't look like it. So I'd like to see them tear that darn thing down.
So tear it down and send it around in little pieces as kind of souvenirs.
Well, sell it or send it.
Okay, ma'am.
Play with it.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. You're on Exchange.
Good morning, Neil.
Morning.
It's quite an idea. I've got a lemon
Yeah,
for all the radio stations in Montreal,
that's quite a large swath.
right?
Yeah.
But on Saturday morning, after I heard the news of the derailment
Mm-hmm.
in the States,
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 radios at the house.
Mm-hmm.
I turned one on. I had CJAD on. It's always on. I went to CFCet. And I took the one in the bedroom, and I went to the Burlington FM station.
Yes.
Did you know that at approximately 10 o'clock in the morning, which is roughly 3 hours after the derailment,
Yeah.
the Amtrak office in Burlington had a 1-800 number for anybody to call in who felt they might have somebody on the train and they would try to help them. And that was not advertised on any of the stations in Montreal.
No, I didn't know that.
And they put that 1-800 number on at least every 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That was so short a time after the accident, they were still having problems getting into the scene of the accident,
Right.
and yet Amtrak could do that and get the 800 number set up for all over North America.
Well, I wonder, I presume that with that accident, which was a very, very major and tragic one, that the news departments of the stations in Montreal, and it was a Saturday, were scrambling very hard, and, were they supposed to find out what Amtrak was doing, or was Amtrak supposed to tell them?
Well, this I don't know. I'm not going to...
I would think that this was a great service provided by Amtrak, and I think it's unfortunate that they didn't let the Montreal stations know that the service was in being.
But you had Nick...
We had Karen Gross up there quite early, I think. We had...
you had three, I think.
Yeah. And we had Rick Lechner, I think, up there.
Up there.
Yeah. But, I'm not blaming anybody, but I think it's unfortunate that Amtrak didn't let the Montreal people know about this service.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, sir?
I have a rose.
Yeah, okay, a rose, right.
Rose, I'll make it short.
Yeah.
I purchased just recently the official souvenir program called Le Quatrième Voyage de Jacques Cartier.
Yeah.
And it's also in English.
Mm-hmm.
It's an excellent book. It's 95 pages.
Yeah.
Beautiful pictures.
Yeah. Where'd you get it? Montreal?
I got it out here in Dorian.
At a bookstore?
Local dépanneur.
Okay.
Magazine rack.
So a good souvenir book on Jacques Cartier.
But not only that, all the executives, like the mayor of Quebec,
yeah,
all wrote a letter.
Mm-hmm.
In French and in English.
Mm-hmm.
The man who wrote the story of Jacques Cartier pretended that he was Jacques Cartier.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sir. Thank you for calling. Gotta go. You're on exchange.
Yes, good morning, Neil.
Morning, ma'am.
Caller, I have a lemon for Laronde, as the other lady did.
All right.
I find it's very expensive.
All right.
And I find that the language is terrible. It's all in French. There's not one thing in English.
Okay.
And I have a lemon for that gentleman that called from Saint-Jean. He referred to Quebec as a country, and it's not a country, it's a province.
But I never get hung up on that stuff. If he wants to call Quebec a country, it doesn't. It doesn't really bother me.
No, it doesn't bother me either, but to a certain extent.
You know.
He referred to it twice as a country. And
Yeah.
it's not a country.
Yeah. Well, that's his. He lost the referendum. He's going to lose the next election. He says eventually we're going to be independent, and I'm sure if we are, that I'll be discussing it with him in the next world.
I'm sure you will.
Because it'll be a long time down the pike.
Fine,
Okay.
but as for Laronde, I find it's terrible.
All right, I'm going to go over there to Laronde and look for myself, but you think it's too expensive.
It's too expensive, and the signs are all in French.
Okay, ma'am. Gotta go. Thank you for calling. I didn't get to Laronde last year, but I'm going to get there this year. Signs or no signs, price or no price. I want to thank you all for participating in both hours of exchange, a very busy exchange this morning. Many new callers, and we welcome our new holiday listeners. Hope you'll stay tuned for Gord Sinkler in the news, followed by the Joe Cannon Show, talking about the new taxi laws, and at 2 o'clock with Melanie King. Hope you join me tomorrow at 10:05. Neil McKenty for Exchange.
Stereo CJAD